If you don't like how I live my life, leave, she said before heading to a yacht party with her best guy. So I did. I boxed up everything I owned while she was partying. When she came back at 3 a.m. expecting a fight, she found empty closets and a note. "You're right, I don't like it, so I left. My name's Zach Donovan. I'm 33 years old." The front door of our historic district apartment always opened with a sigh, like it was as tired as I was. I'd just finished a grueling 30-hour rescue operation off the Georgia coast. We'd pulled 4 panicked tourists from a capsized fishing charter in 12-foot swells. I was bone tired, the kind of tired that seeps into your marrow after fighting the Atlantic for a day and a half. All I wanted was quiet, just a little bit of peace. But Ivy Pierce, my girlfriend of 3.5 years, was the opposite of quiet. I walked in to find her a whirlwind of sequins and hairspray, a storm of frantic energy as she got ready for another night out. Our living room, the one I paid $1,400 of our $2,100 rent for, had become her permanent studio. The $950 camera and light kit I bought for her sat on its tripod by the window, aimed at the perfect selfie spot where the evening light hit just right. It was a constant glaring reminder of my investment in her dream, a dream that seemed to involve me being the silent financial backer and occasional prop. We'd been talking about buying a house together, maybe getting engaged after the holidays. I'd been looking at rings for months, saving up for something she'd love. The idea felt right. We'd been together long enough, lived together for 8 months, seemed to know each other inside and out. My family liked her, mostly. My sister had warned me about the spending, but I figured that was just sibling protectiveness. I dropped my gear bag by the door, the heavy thud barely registering over her music. I tried to keep my voice even. "Hey, can we just stay in tonight? I'll pick up some food. We can just be." She laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh, just an unthinking one, like I'd asked for something as absurd as flying to the moon on a whim. She was already halfway into her party persona. "Zach, you know I can't. Lance's party is tonight. It's critical for my brand." Lance Hoffman, her promoter friend, was always hosting some event that was supposedly critical. It was always on a borrowed boat or in some exclusive VIP tent at Thunderbolt Marina I was never comfortable in. I pushed just a little, feeling like I was pushing against a brick wall, but I had to try. "Ivy, I'm asking for one Friday night. One. I haven't seen you for more than an hour straight all week." She turned from the full-length mirror, her reflection shimmering. Her smile was sharp, painted on. "If you don't like how I live my life, leave." The words weren't new. She'd thrown them at me before, usually during smaller arguments about money or my long shifts. But this time they landed differently. They weren't a threat. They were an instruction. The door clicked shut behind her, the sound of her heels fading down the hallway. The silence she left behind was absolute, and in it, I made a decision. There was no anger, no shouting into the empty apartment that suddenly felt like a museum of our failed relationship. There was just a quiet click in my head, like a switch being flipped from on to off. Her words echoed, "Leave." Okay. I went to the bedroom closet and pulled out 2 of my old canvas duffel bags and a sturdy cardboard box from the top shelf. I started packing methodically, with the same calm precision I use when checking our rescue gear. My Coast Guard uniforms, my running shoes, the worn copy of a book my dad gave me years ago, my work equipment. Only what was mine? I walked over to the camera kit, the one I'd bought thinking it would make her happy. My money, my purchase. I disassembled it carefully, unplugged the ring light, and placed every piece neatly into the box. The furniture we'd picked out together, the rug she'd spent a week agonizing over, the abstract art on the walls. I left it all. I didn't want memories. I wanted a clean break. I took a single piece of paper from the notepad by the phone and wrote her words back to her. "You're right, I don't like it, so I left." I placed the note on the kitchen counter, right where she'd left her car keys and a smudge of lipstick on a cocktail napkin. My last call from that apartment was to my captain, Murphy, a man who had been my mentor since I was a rookie swimmer. I kept it simple. "Captain, I need a place to stay tonight." He didn't ask why, he didn't need the story. He just said, "The room above the rescue garage is yours, Zach. Doors unlocked." By 3 in the morning, every trace of me was gone from that apartment. It was like I'd never been there at all. The room at the station was small, just a single bed, a metal locker, and a window that overlooked the rescue boats bobbing gently in, Thunderbolt Marina. The constant low sound of the waves lapping against the docks replaced the drone of city traffic. It was peace. The first thing I did was sit on the edge of the cot and block her number. Then I went through my phone and blocked her on Instagram, Facebook, every digital tie we had. Complete radio silence. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise and went for a long run along the Savannah riverfront. My head was clear for the first time in what felt like 3 years. Later, my crewmate Diego Santos found me on the dock, meticulously cleaning a set of rescue lines. He just looked at me for a long moment, taking in the change. "You look different, man," he said, not with pity, but with quiet understanding. I just nodded, not needing to say more. "I feel it," I replied. He didn't press. He just handed me a wrench, and we worked in comfortable, easy silence that I hadn't realized how much I missed. I deliberately ignored my phone for 48 hours. When I finally checked, I saw the predictable storm. 19 missed calls from a number I didn't have saved anymore, and a string of texts that had escalated from angry demands. "Are you kidding me, Zach?" to manipulative pleas. "I'm scared. Where are you? Please come home." I read them with a strange sense of detachment, like reading about characters in a book. Then I deleted the entire thread and blocked the number again. It was all just noise now, and I was finally in a quiet place. After a week of that blessed quiet, I started the process of untangling my life from hers. The first step was my finances. I was logged into my bank account online, setting up automatic bill pay for my new P.O. box when I saw it, a charge that made my stomach clench. $1,800. The description was simple and damning. Thunderbolt Marina Yacht Charter Deposit. My blood ran cold. I knew the party she went to was on Lance's boat, or at least that's what she told me, but this charge was from 2 weeks ago. I scrolled through my calendar in my head, trying to place the date, and then the memory hit me like a punch to the gut. Ivy sitting on our couch with my tablet, her brow furrowed in concentration. She told me her phone was dead, and she just needed to check something on Amazon. I hadn't thought anything of it. My job requires me to sign digital forms all the time, incident reports, supply requisitions. For convenience, my e-signature was saved on that device. She hadn't just used my tablet. She had found my saved signature and used it to forge my name on a contract, securing a deposit on a yacht I never even knew she was chartering. This wasn't just her being selfish with my time and my paycheck anymore. This was calculated. This was fraud. This was theft. The quiet resignation I'd felt when I walked out the door was gone, burned away by a hard, clear anger. I wasn't just leaving a bad relationship anymore. I was defending myself from an attack. I immediately looked up the number for the marina and asked to speak directly to the manager. A woman named Margaret Wells came on the line. I explained the situation as calmly as I could, keeping my voice steady and professional. "My name is Zach Donovan. There is an $1,800 charge on my account from your business that I did not authorize." Margaret was polite but firm, which I expected. "Sir, I understand, but we have a digitally signed contract with your name and signature on it for the charter of the Summer Dream. I asked for 2 things: the exact timestamp of when that digital signature was applied and the email address for their records department. She gave them to me. The timestamp was for a Tuesday afternoon, 2 weeks prior, at 2:15 p.m. I swiveled in my chair and pulled up my official duty log on my computer. There it was in black and white. I was in the middle of a 30-hour rescue operation, clocked in and deployed off Tybee Island. I had a dozen colleagues who could vouch for my exact location at that very minute. I composed an email to Margaret. The subject line was simple: disputed charge, Z. Donovan. Attached to the email were 3 things. First, a screenshot of my official work log, proving I was on duty and physically deployed at sea. Second, a screenshot of the text message from Ivy where she had explicitly told me to leave. And third, a copy of the receipt for the tablet, proving that I was the owner of the device she had used to commit the fraud. I hit send and leaned back, a cold sense of purpose settling over me. Margaret Wells from the marina called me back within the hour. Her tone was completely different, apologetic and serious. "Mr. Donovan, I am so sorry for this situation. The evidence you provided is clear and indisputable. We are reversing the charge on your account immediately, and transferring the contract along with all financial liability to Ms. Pierce's name. Hearing those words, I felt a wave of vindication wash over me. It was a start. But as I hung up, I realized it wasn't enough. I could just take my money back and disappear into my new quiet life. But if I did that, she would just find someone else to use. The pattern would continue. She hadn't just betrayed my trust. She had built her entire influencer life, her entire brand, on my stability, my money, my good name, my peace of mind. She was selling a glamorous waterfront lifestyle that she couldn't afford, and I was unknowingly footing the bill. That was the moment my goal changed. It wasn't just about getting away from her anymore. It was about taking back everything she had built, using me as a foundation. I made an irreversible choice. I would not engage with her online drama, her tearful posts, or her angry texts. Instead, I would systematically and calmly present the truth to anyone and everyone who was tangled in her web of lies. I started a new folder on my laptop, titled simply Evidence. Into it, I saved the emails from the marina. I scanned and saved the rent stubs from the last year showing I paid $1,400 of our $2,500 rent every single month. I added the receipt for the camera kit. And finally, I saved a 67-second voicemail from a month ago, a message I'd forgotten about until now, where she was laughing with a friend about my boring Coast Guard money being so reliable. This wasn't about getting revenge anymore. It was about restoring order to a life she had thrown into chaos. The first domino fell when the marina contacted Ivy to inform her that the $1,800 deposit was now her responsibility, along with the remaining balance for the yacht charter. Unsurprisingly, she couldn't cover it. She was now in debt to the marina for a party she'd already thrown. Her response was predictable. She went public. Her Instagram story was a masterpiece of vague accusations and tearful performance. She filmed herself, eyes red and puffy, talking about a toxic ex trying to sabotage my career, and how he was trying to financially control me even after the breakup. She never used my name, but in a town like Savannah, she didn't have to. Everyone knew who she was talking about. My phone immediately lit up with messages from her friends, people I barely knew, calling me a monster and a controlling jerk. I read the first two, then put my phone on silent and ignored the rest. Diego saw the posts during our downtime at the station, holding his phone out to me. "You're just going to let her say that stuff, man?" I shook my head, grabbing a rag to wipe down one of the boats. "She's using emotion. I'm going to use receipts," I told him. "Let her create all the drama she wants. I'll just provide the facts when I'm asked." I had a deep-seated trust that the truth, presented calmly and without anger, was far more powerful than any public tantrum she could throw. My evidence folder was my armor. The next day, my strategy was put to the test. I got a direct message on Instagram from a local boutique, one of the first businesses to give Ivy a sponsorship deal. The owner's message was polite but direct. "Hi, Zach. Sorry to bother you. We're reviewing our contracts. Ivy told us you co-signed her brand ambassador agreement. With all the online drama, we just need to verify our paperwork." I had never heard of the agreement, let alone signed it. It was another lie, another place she'd used my name without my knowledge. I replied just as politely. "Hello, I was not a party to any of her business agreements. For your reference, the camera and lighting kit she used for your promotional photos was a personal purchase of mine." I opened the evidence folder, attached the digital receipt, and sent it. The owner replied with a simple, telling message. "Thank you. That clarifies things." Next, I made a call to our former landlord, Howard Mendez, an older man who was always fair with us. I informed him that I had permanently vacated the property and would not be on the lease when it came up for renewal in a month. Then I added calmly, "Howard, He also wanted to let you know that the repeated noise complaints you called me about over the last year, those were from parties she threw while I was on my 30-hour shifts." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then he said, his voice thoughtful, "Thank you for letting me know, Zach. That puts things in a very different perspective." Within a week, Ivy's carefully curated world began to visibly crumble. The boutique quietly removed all photos of her from their social media pages and website, effectively ending their partnership without a public statement. A second sponsor, a local jewelry maker, did the same thing a day later. Then the final notice came from Howard Mendez. He sent her a formal letter stating that due to multiple lease violations and the departure of the primary tenant, Her lease would not be renewed. She had 30 days to move out of the apartment she couldn't afford on her own. Her online persona devolved from wronged victim to pure desperation. He started a GoFundMe page with the dramatic title, "Help Me Escape My Abusive Ex." But because she couldn't provide any concrete details without incriminating herself, it just looked like a blatant cash grab. After a week, it had stalled at 45 Warsaws. Lance Hoffman, the party promoter and her best guy friend, suddenly stopped appearing in her posts. He even went back and untagged himself from old photos with her. Her social climbing safety net had vanished the second she became a liability. The real threat to her was never my anger. It was the simple, boring truth. Her influencer lifestyle was a house of cards built on my paycheck, and I had just quietly walked away, taking the foundation with me. The bald $800 from the marina was back in my bank account. It felt strange seeing it there, like dirty money. I posted the camera kit on a local marketplace, and a college student studying marine biology bought it for $700. She was thrilled, explaining how she was going to use it to film a documentary, project on local reef conservation. Seeing her genuine excitement felt good. I now had $2,500 that represented the sum total of Ivy's deceit. I didn't want it. Keeping it felt like holding on to the last piece of a nightmare. I wanted to wash my hands of the whole affair and turn her selfishness into something good for the community I spent my life serving. I looked up the number for Karen Thompson, the director of the Savannah Coast Guard Scholarship Fund. It's a great local charity that helps kids from working-class families get the certifications they need for real careers on the water, boat captains, marine mechanics, or even joining the Coast Guard like me. I told her I wanted to make a donation, the full amount, I said, $2,500, but it has to be anonymous. Can you just list it as, from a friend of the coast? Wiring that money was the final act. It was no longer about her. I had converted the cost of her lies into a future for someone who deserved it. For the first time, I felt completely and totally free. A few months went by. Life found a new steady rhythm. Work, sleep, train, repeat. It was simple, and it was good. The annual Savannah Shrimp Festival was coming up, and my crew was being honored for the rescue we'd made back in the spring, pulling those 4 tourists out of that rip current. The night before the festival, Diego showed me a video Ivy had posted. It was her crying, surrounded by moving boxes in our old, empty apartment. The echo in the room made her voice sound small and hollow. She talked about being hunted and having her life destroyed by a cruel man. For the first time since I'd left, I felt a flicker of doubt. I never wanted to ruin her. I just wanted to be free of her. Had I gone too far? Was I the monster she was painting me as? I found Captain Murphy in his office, looking over tide charts for the next day. I leaned against the doorframe and told him what I was feeling. I didn't want to crush her, Captain. I just wanted out. He leaned back in his worn office chair and looked at me over the rim of his glasses. His gaze was steady, as it always was. "You didn't crush her, Zach," he said, his voice calm and certain. "You just stopped carrying her. For 3.5 years, she was standing on your shoulders, and you finally decided to walk away. She fell on her own." He was right. I hadn't been the aggressor. I was the foundation she took for granted, and I had simply removed myself. My resolve hardened again. I had nothing to apologize for. The Shrimp Festival was packed. The whole town, it seemed, was crowded along the Savannah riverfront, enjoying the food and live music. My crew and I were on the main stage, Captain Murphy, Diego, the whole team. The mayor was in the middle of a speech, getting ready to hand us a commemorative plaque for the spring rescue. Just as the mayor was talking about community and bravery, a commotion started near the front of the crowd. People were turning, murmuring. It was Ivy. She pushed her way past the temporary barriers, her phone held high, recording herself as she marched toward the stage. She looked frantic, her hair a mess, her face pale. She got to the bottom of the stage steps and yelled my name. "Zach, please don't do this." The festival went silent. The band stopped playing mid-song. Every phone in the crowd, hundreds of them, turned from the stage to her and then to me. This was the scene she wanted, her grand public appeal for sympathy. She launched into a tearful, rehearsed speech about how she'd made terrible mistakes, how she was in therapy now, how she couldn't live without me, and how she promised, swore, she would change. I didn't move. I stood there in my Coast Guard polo, clean-shaven and calm, and just watched her. I let her have her moment. I felt nothing but a distant, detached pity for the spectacle she was making of herself. When she finally finished, breathless and looking up at me expectantly, expecting me to break, to rush down and embrace her, I leaned toward the mayor's microphone. I looked right at her, made sure she could see my face, and said one word. My voice was calm and clear as it carried over the festival speakers. No, I didn't offer an explanation. I didn't list her crimes. My refusal was the only answer she deserved. The silence that followed was broken by the quick-thinking mayor, who, after a shocked pause, boomed into his own mic. Okay then, how about another big hand for Savannah's bravest? The applause was hesitant at first, then it grew into a roar. The moment was over. The show moved on. Ivy stood there, utterly humiliated. Her grand romantic gesture, a spectacular public failure. She turned and fled through the crowd, which parted to let her pass. In the weeks that followed, I watched from a distance as the aftermath played out. Ivy's social media went completely silent. The few mutual acquaintances we still had through Diego told me she'd moved, back in with her parents in Ohio. Her influencer dreams had died with her credibility. The local newspaper covered the festival, calling my crew hometown heroes. The article mentioned a brief interruption during the ceremony, but focused instead on the award and, in a separate column, a surprisingly large anonymous donation that had recently been made to the Coast Guard Scholarship Fund. My new life settled into a rhythm I'd forgotten was possible. Evenings in the station's common room with my crew, the easy sound of laughter and conversation filling the space. No more waiting for someone to come home. No more bracing for arguments about money or respect or basic consideration. No more walking on eggshells in my own life. I started dating again, slowly and carefully. A nurse from the hospital who understood the demands of emergency work. Someone who appreciated quiet dinners and honest conversation. Someone who paid her own bills and didn't see my paycheck as a pathway to a lifestyle she couldn't afford. Last night, I stood on the small balcony outside my room, looking at the harbor lights reflecting on the dark water. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone to come home or bracing for a fight. I was just home. I lost 3.5 years and a lot of money, but I bought my life back. The price was steep, but it was worth every single penny. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't fighting back or proving your point. It's simply refusing to carry someone who sees your strength as their entitlement. When you stop being someone's foundation, you discover who you really are when you're only supporting yourself.